One man's awakening. For everyone who has ever felt lost, who has questioned their path, or who has wondered if peace is possible, may you find your way home to yourself. Introduction. The journey begins. This book is meant to document my personal journey into spirituality. I do not claim to have all the answers. Rather, my intention is to share the practices and perspectives that have helped me become more spiritually aware and deeply connected to the earth. What follows is not instruction from a place of mastery, but an honest account of what has worked for me along the way. I want to be completely transparent with you from the start. I am still learning. Every day brings new insights, new challenges, and new opportunities for growth. The path I have walked has been anything but straight, and I have stumbled more times than I can count. But each stumble has taught me something valuable, and it is those lessons I hope to share with you. What this book is and isn't. This is not a how-to guide written by an expert. This is a collection of experiences, insights, and tools that have genuinely helped me navigate life's challenges. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and trust your own intuition above all else. Before we begin talking about the awakening, I think it is important that you get to know a little about me. Understanding where I came from will help you understand the lens through which I view the world, and why certain practices have been so transformative for me. My story. From a very young age, I realized that anxiety and stress seemed to follow me more than they did most people. I constantly worried about what others thought of me. I worried about what was going to happen the next day. I rehearsed conversations before I had them, replayed conversations after they were over, and went through them again and again, as if thinking about them enough could somehow change the outcome. My mind felt scattered, always racing, never fully present. I would lie awake at night going over every interaction of the day, analyzing what I had said wrong, what I could have done differently, what people must think of me. It was exhausting, but I did not know any other way to be. As a child, I only remember having a few panic attacks. They were terrifying experiences, my heart racing, my chest tightening, the world feeling like it was closing in around me. But as I got older, they became more frequent. Around the age of 18, I started using marijuana to manage the panic attacks, to quiet my mind and escape the endless overthinking. It worked, at least for a while. The noise in my head would fade, and I could finally breathe. By my mid-20s, I had turned to prescription painkillers to numb the deeper pain underneath it all. The anxiety had evolved into something darker, something heavier. I was trying to escape not just my thoughts, but my entire reality. Looking back now, I can see that I was running from myself, from the person I had become, from the life I was living. At the time, I did not understand why my mind wandered the way it did. Why was I constantly replaying the past or worrying about things that might never happen? Even now, I am not sure I fully understand why my mind worked that way. Maybe it was genetics, maybe it was childhood experiences, maybe it was just the way I was wired. The why matters less to me now than it used to, what I know now. I have learned how to manage my mind. I have learned how to bring myself back when I drift into worry or regret. I have learned that the key is living in the present moment. It sounds simple. Trust me, it isn't. It takes practice. It takes awareness. It takes pulling yourself out of your own head over and over again, sometimes dozens of times a day. But it is possible. And if I can do it after everything I've been through, I genuinely believe anyone can. This book is my attempt to share what I have learned, not as a teacher, but as a fellow traveler on this strange and beautiful journey we call life. I hope that something in these pages resonates with you, that something here helps you find your own path to peace. The breaking point. Sometimes we must break before we can become whole. My breaking point came after years of trudging through a marriage that had quietly, painfully, stopped working. I wish I could tell you that we simply walked away, that it was calm, that it was serene. But that would be a lie. It was anything but peaceful. We both said things that cut deeper than we intended. We both acted in ways we would later regret. Perhaps that was part of our process, the way two broken people try to heal by breaking each other a little more. Still, looking back, I cannot help but wish I had been the bigger person, that I had held my tongue a little longer, that I had not lashed out as fiercely as I did. The end of my marriage forced me to confront something terrifying. If the one thing I had believed could never end, my marriage, could indeed end, then what of everything else I held as truth? If that foundation crumbled, were all my certainties nothing more than sand slipping through my fingers? Even before any awakening, I knew something had to shift. I did not know what it would look like or where it would take me, but I knew I could not continue as I was. I could not remain cloaked in depression, could not stay trapped in that hollow, ghost-like version of myself. I longed for joy, for light, for a life that felt like it belonged to me again, but the path was invisible, hidden in shadow. I wish I could tell you that the answers came immediately after the divorce, that the pieces fell neatly into place, but that is not how it happened. We were separated for over a year, then divorced, and it took nearly another year after that before I glimpsed anything resembling spiritual understanding or clarity. The journey was slow, uneven, and often painful. There were days when I felt like I was making progress, followed by weeks when I felt like I was sliding backward. There were moments of hope and moments of despair, sometimes within the same hour. But that breaking point, the heartbreak, the loss, the disillusionment, was the catalyst. It cracked me open, forced me to look inside, in its own brutal way, began to show me that life could still hold more than sorrow, the gift of breaking. Sometimes our darkest moments become the very things that set us free. The breaking is not the end of the story, it is often the beginning. That perhaps happiness was not gone, it was simply waiting for me to find the courage to seek it. And seeking it would require me to change everything. How I thought, how I related to the world around me. It would require me to wake up. Awakening. My awakening began unexpectedly while scrolling through TikTok, where I encountered a creator who articulated the nature of the universe in a way I had never previously considered. Although I had long believed in the interconnectedness of all things, recognizing that everything is, at its most fundamental level, energy, and that energy itself is never truly separate, his explanation brought a new depth of clarity to that belief. He described the Big Bang not merely as a cosmological event, but as the expansion of a single unified reality expressing itself through countless individual forms. In this view, what we perceive as separation is simply differentiation within a greater whole. Because all existence emerged from the same primordial source, we remain intrinsically and profoundly connected, woven together by the very origin that gave rise to us all. The interconnected universe. Think about it. Every atom in your body was forged in the hearts of ancient stars. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon that forms the basis of your very existence, all of it came from the same cosmic source. You are literally made of stardust, connected to everything that has ever existed. This realization hit me like a lightning bolt. If we are all connected at the most fundamental level, then every action I take affects the whole. Every thought I think ripples out into the universe. Every interaction I have is not just between two separate individuals, but between different expressions of the same underlying reality. The implications of this are profound. It means that hurting another is, in some sense, hurting myself. It means that when I help someone else, I am helping the whole, which includes me. It means that the divisions we create between us and them are ultimately illusions, convenient fictions that serve our egos but do not reflect the deeper truth of our interconnectedness. This understanding changed everything for me. It gave me a framework for understanding my place in the world, for making sense of my suffering, for finding meaning in my experiences. It suggested that my journey was not just about me, but about the whole of which I am a part. My healing was the world's healing. My awakening was the universe becoming more aware of itself through me. Try this. Feeling your connection. Take a moment to look around you. Pick an object, any object, and really look at it. Consider that the atoms that make up that object are the same age as the atoms that make up your body. They came from the same source, traveled through the same cosmic history, and have now temporarily arranged themselves into different forms. The separation between you and that object is not as complete as it appears. Feel that connection, however subtle it may seem. Facing the ultimate fear. I have always carried a quiet, persistent fear of death. It lingered in the background of my thoughts, surfacing in moments of stillness and uncertainty. For much of my life, the idea of no longer existing, of simply ceasing to be, felt overwhelming. The fear would strike at odd moments. I would be lying in bed, about to fall asleep, and suddenly the thought would hit me. One day, I will not exist. My consciousness, my memories, my experiences, all of it will simply stop. The panic would rise in my chest. My heart would race, and I would lie there in the dark, terrified of something that was inevitable, and at that moment, completely abstract. Yet through my awakening, my understanding began to shift. I came to see death not as an abrupt ending, but as a transformation. Energy, by its very nature, cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. If we are, at our core, expressions of energy, then it follows that our essence must continue in some way beyond the confines of the physical body. The law of conservation. Physics tells us that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. If consciousness is a form of energy, and everything suggests that it is, then what happens to that energy when the body dies? This question has occupied philosophers and mystics for millennia, and while I do not claim to have definitive answers, the possibility of continuation has brought me profound peace. I do not claim to possess definitive answers about what awaits us after death. The specifics remain a mystery, and I am comfortable acknowledging that uncertainty. However, I have grown to believe that our energy, our consciousness, our essence, the animating force that makes us who we are, does not simply vanish. It transitions. It evolves. It continues its journey in a form we may not yet fully understand. Through conversations with psychic mediums and others who have dedicated their lives to exploring the unseen dimensions of existence, I have also come to believe that connection does not end with physical departure. If our loved ones persist beyond this life in some energetic state, then the bonds we share with them may also endure. The possibility that communication, in some subtle and meaningful way, remains available has profoundly softened my fear. If death is not annihilation but transformation, then perhaps it is not death itself that deserves our deepest fear. What is far more tragic, far more unsettling, is the idea of reaching the end of this life having never truly lived. To exist in a constant state of fear, hesitation, or self-doubt is to deny ourselves the fullness of the experience we have been given. Reflection. Living fully. What would you do differently if you knew you had only 1 year left to live? What dreams have you put on hold because of fear? How can you bring more of your authentic self into your daily life? This realization has compelled me to confront my fears rather than be governed by them. Letting go of fear is not a simple or immediate process. It requires intention, awareness, and patience. I understand that it is easier said than done. Yet as this book unfolds, my hope is to share the insights, reflections, and practical tools that have helped me begin that process, so that you too may learn not only to understand your fear, but to move through it, and ultimately to live more freely and fully. Tools for the journey. As I began to navigate this new spiritual landscape, I discovered a variety of practices and tools that helped me along the way. None of these are magic bullets, and none of them will instantly transform your life. But used consistently and with intention, they can create profound shifts in how you experience yourself and the world around you. I want to emphasize that these tools are just that, tools. They are means to an end, not ends in themselves. The goal is not to collect spiritual practices like trophies, but to find what genuinely helps you become more present, more peaceful, and more connected to your authentic self. The power of writing. Writing transforms scattered thoughts into clarity. There is something profoundly transformative about the act of writing. When thoughts remain confined to the mind, they often circle endlessly, blending emotion with assumption and making it difficult to distinguish clarity from confusion. However, when you place those same thoughts onto paper, they take form. They become tangible, organized, and easier to examine. Writing is more than self-expression, it is a practice of self-discovery. It reveals patterns we might otherwise overlook, brings unconscious beliefs into the light, and anchors desire into something deliberate rather than fleeting. What begins as ink on a page often becomes the blueprint for meaningful change. Getting started with journaling. You do not need a fancy journal or perfect handwriting. You do not need to write pages every day. Start with just 5 minutes. Write about whatever is on your mind, your worries, your dreams, your questions, your gratitude. The act of putting words on paper is what matters, not the quality of the prose. I strongly encourage you to get a journal or notebook, something dedicated to writing down your thoughts and reflections as you begin your shadow work. Using a single space for this process allows you to return to it over time, to see your growth, and to recognize patterns you may not notice in the moment. Candle work and intentions. A candle flame becomes a physical symbol of focused intention. One of the primary tools I use in my own practice of intention setting is candle work. For me, a candle is not merely wax and flame. It is a physical symbol of focus. When I set an intention, I speak it aloud with clarity and conviction, articulating precisely what I desire to call into my life. I do so as if it already exists, because in the realm of intention, it does. After speaking my intention, I light the candle and allow the flame to serve as a visual representation of that intention being carried outward. Then, just as importantly, I release it. I do not obsess over how it will manifest or attempt to control its path. I trust that what is meant for me will arrive in the way it is meant to arrive. The art of surrender. Setting an intention is only half the work. The other half is letting it go. This is not giving up. It is trusting. When you release your attachment to the outcome, you open yourself to possibilities you might never have imagined. It is important to understand that intentions do not always manifest in the exact form we imagine. For example, if you set an intention for financial abundance, you might envision receiving a specific amount of money in a specific way, perhaps a bonus at work or an unexpected gift. Yet, manifestation does not always unfold so directly. The financial relief you seek might appear as a reduced bill, an unexpected discount, increased tips, new opportunities, or multiple smaller gains that collectively meet your need. Sometimes it may not arrive immediately at all. Timing plays a role. There may be circumstances aligning behind the scenes that you cannot yet see. What you believe you need may in fact be preparing you for something greater. You might ask for $500, only to later realize that what you truly required was something far more significant, whether materially or spiritually. This is why surrender is such an essential component of the process. Once the intention is set, overthinking becomes counterproductive. Doubt disrupts alignment. The practice requires trust. Trust that the universe, God, source, or whatever higher intelligence you resonate with understands the broader picture. It also requires acceptance that not every desire will manifest, particularly if it interferes with someone else's free will or contradicts a greater purpose. Meditation. Creating a dedicated space helps signal to your mind that it is time for stillness. Meditation is another powerful method I use to set intentions. In a meditative state, the mind quiets and the intention feels less like a request and more like a transmission. There is a sense of calm certainty that accompanies it. Over time, I have found this practice to be deeply effective. Interestingly, most of my intentions are not solely for myself. While I certainly set personal intentions, such as strengthening the love and connection within my relationship, I also direct many outward. I often set intentions for peace, both within my own life and on a broader scale. At this stage in my life, peace holds even greater value for me than happiness. Happiness is beautiful, but peace is foundational. Peace sustains. I also extend intentions toward family members and friends who may be struggling, whether emotionally, physically, or financially. If someone I care about is in pain, I focus my energy on their healing. I have come to believe that intentions rooted in compassion and selflessness carry a unique resonance. When your focus expands beyond personal gain, your practice deepens in sincerity. A simple meditation practice. Find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed. Sit comfortably with your spine straight but not rigid. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. Then simply observe your breath as it flows in and out. When your mind wanders, and it will, gently bring your attention back to your breath. Start with just 5 minutes and gradually increase as you feel comfortable. Tarot and crystals. I have only recently begun exploring the world of tarot cards and crystals, so I approach these subjects with humility and an open mind. I do not present myself as an expert, but rather as a student, someone who is curious, observant, and willing to learn through experience. Tarot, in particular, has intrigued me for quite some time. There is something compelling about the symbolism within the cards and the way they can reflect aspects of our inner world back to us. Whenever I receive a reading, I tend to find something constructive or affirming within the message. Whether the insight is practical, emotional, or spiritual, it often provides a moment of reflection that proves valuable. That said, I have also learned the importance of moderation. It can be tempting to seek repeated readings, especially when you wish to support readers you care about or when you are searching for reassurance. However, I have been advised, and I believe there's wisdom in this, that tarot should not be consulted compulsively or back-to-back. The cards are not meant to create dependency. Rather, they serve as a tool for guidance and perspective. Tarot as illumination, not prediction. Tarot, as I see it, is less about prediction and more about illumination. It offers guidance, but it does not remove personal responsibility or free will. A reading reflects current energies, patterns, and likely outcomes based on the present trajectory. Once you become aware of a potential outcome, you are empowered to make different choices. My exploration of crystals is equally new. I keep several in my bedroom primarily with the intention of promoting rest and calm. While I cannot definitively state whether they are solely responsible for improvements in my sleep, I have noticed a positive shift since incorporating them into my nightly routine. Even if part of their influence is psychological, the ritual itself, the act of intentionally creating a peaceful environment, has been beneficial. There is value in anything that encourages mindfulness and tranquility. I also carry a crystal with me during the day, one that I associate with peace. As I have mentioned earlier in this book, peace has become one of my highest priorities. At this stage of my life, inner calm holds greater significance than fleeting happiness. Whether through belief, symbolism, or energetic resonance, having that physical reminder in my pocket reinforces my commitment to maintaining balance. I will be honest, I do not have every crystal memorized, nor do I claim to understand all their traditional meanings. When I am seeking a stone associated with a particular intention, I often research it. There's no shame in that. We live in an age where information is readily accessible, and responsible exploration includes study and discernment. At the same time, I believe it is important not to become overly reliant on external validation. While research is helpful, intuition matters as well. If you feel drawn to a particular stone or a practice, there may be a reason for that connection. Ultimately, whether you are working with tarot, crystals, meditation, or any other spiritual tool, remember that you do not need to know everything to begin. Growth is a process. Trust yourself. You are, in your own way, connected to something greater. Allow both knowledge and intuition to guide you as you continue your journey. Finding mentors. Throughout my journey, I have learned a great deal from various sources, including books, conversations, and digital platforms such as TikTok and YouTube. However, one of the most important lessons I can share is this: never accept a single voice as absolute truth. Do not watch one video or read one perspective and assume it represents the entirety of reality. Explore widely. Listen to diverse viewpoints. Engage in thoughtful dialogue. Then step back and reflect. Your conclusions should be your own. The danger of single sources. When we rely on a single source for our understanding of the world, we limit ourselves to that source's biases, blind spots, and limitations. True wisdom comes from synthesizing multiple perspectives and finding what resonates with your own inner knowing. There's no singular correct way to walk a spiritual path. This journey is deeply personal. It will not look identical to anyone else's, nor should it. Do not allow others to dictate what is right or wrong for you if your intentions are rooted in growth, integrity, and compassion. Your path belongs to you. At the same time, I strongly encourage you to seek out mentors along the way. A mentor does not have to be someone who guides you daily. It may be an author whose words resonate deeply, a content creator who speaks with authenticity, or an individual in your life who embodies wisdom and balance. What matters is not that they mirror your beliefs exactly, but that they demonstrate thoughtfulness, humility, and genuine care. The right influences can illuminate blind spots, challenge your thinking, and support your growth. They can offer perspectives you might never have considered on your own. They can hold up a mirror to your assumptions and help you see yourself more clearly. Finding your teachers. Look for people who embody the qualities you want to develop. Notice who makes you feel more at peace, more inspired, more connected to your authentic self. These are your teachers, whether they know it or not. Study what they do, how they move through the world, how they respond to challenges. Discernment, however, is essential. Not everyone who presents themselves as a guide is aligned with your best interests. Approach every teacher, every philosophy, and every method with thoughtful curiosity, rather than blind acceptance. Use what you encounter as inspiration, but always filter it through your own critical thinking and lived experience. Ultimately, your journey is yours to define. You are not required to conform to another person's map. You are here to create your own. Recommended reading. There are a few books I have read along the way that have had a meaningful impact on my growth. I have listed them below for anyone who may be looking for additional guidance or inspiration. The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. This book explores the nature of consciousness and offers practical guidance for living with more freedom and inner peace. Singer's approach is accessible and profound, making complex spiritual concepts understandable for everyday life. The Door to You by David Christensen. A thoughtful exploration of self-discovery and personal transformation. Christensen offers insights that can help readers connect more deeply with their authentic selves. Empty Your Backpack by Sam Dima. More motivational in nature, this book encouraged readers to let go of the burdens they carry and approach life with renewed energy and purpose. The first two books lean more toward spiritual exploration, while the third is more motivational in nature. Each offers a different perspective, and together they provide a balanced blend of insight, reflection, and encouragement. A note on reading. Do not feel pressured to read everything at once. Let your intuition guide you to what you need in each moment. Sometimes a single sentence from a book can change your entire perspective. Be open to what finds you. Shadow work. One of the first concepts I encountered on my journey was shadow work. Looking back, it almost feels strange that someone had to introduce me to it because in many ways it is something we have all been avoiding our entire lives. Shadow work is similar to therapy. It requires revisiting past experiences, especially painful ones, and asking what they were meant to teach us. More importantly, it asks us to decide what we are finally ready to release. When we hold tightly to past trauma, resentment, or regret, we trap ourselves in cycles of pain that prevent true healing. Shadow work is not about reliving the past or blaming ourselves or others. It is about bringing awareness to what we have buried, understanding how it shaped us, and choosing to no longer let it control us. Healing requires light. Healing cannot happen in the dark. It begins the moment we are willing to look inward. The shadows we fear to face are often the very things that hold the keys to our freedom. To help you understand what shadow work looks like in practice, here are a few reflective questions. These are not meant to be answered quickly or perfectly. They are simply invitations to slow down, to be honest with yourself, and to begin noticing the patterns that may have been running beneath the surface. Shadow work reflection questions. Triggers. What traits or behaviors in others trigger strong emotional reactions in me? And what might those reactions reveal about parts of myself I haven't fully accepted? Recurring patterns. What fears or beliefs about myself keep resurfacing in my thoughts or actions, even when I try to ignore them? Where do I believe these beliefs first originated? Authenticity. In what situations do I feel the need to hide, people please, or wear a mask? What am I afraid would happen if I showed up as my authentic self instead? Childhood wounds. What did I need as a child that I did not receive? How might I be trying to meet that need in unhealthy ways as an adult? Forgiveness. Who am I still holding resentment toward? What would it take for me to release that burden, not for their sake, but for my own. Take your time with these questions. Write about them in your journal. Sit with them in meditation. Talk about them with a trusted friend or therapist. There is no rush, and there is no right answer. The goal is simply to bring light to what has been hidden in shadow. Mediums. Throughout my life, I have spoken with a number of psychic mediums, long before I consciously identified myself as being on a spiritual path. One of the most significant experiences occurred after the passing of my stepfather. At that time, I was struggling deeply with the concept of death and the finality it seemed to represent. As I mentioned earlier in this book, accepting death felt overwhelming to me. I found myself searching for reassurance, something that would help me make sense of what felt senseless. During that period, I consulted a medium. What stood out to me was not simply the comfort she offered, but the specific details she shared. Details about my stepfather that I had long forgotten or had never openly discussed. These were not general statements that could apply to anyone. They were personal and meaningful. The power of specificity. When a medium shares information that feels deeply personal, names, dates, private memories that no one could have known, it challenges our assumptions about what is possible. These experiences can open doors in our minds that we did not even know were closed. For years afterward, that experience alone brought me a measure of peace. I often reflected on it when my fear of death resurfaced. If she was able to access information that felt so personal and precise, it challenged my belief that death was merely an ending. It opened my mind to the possibility that something continues beyond what we physically see. Following my spiritual awakening, I have spoken with a few additional mediums and plan to do so again in the near future. I view these conversations as tools, resources that can offer perspective, healing, or affirmation during certain seasons of life. However, I have also come to understand the importance of balance. While mediums and tarot readings can provide insight, they should never become a substitute for personal discernment or inner guidance. It is healthy to seek clarity from time to time, but it is not healthy to build your entire foundation upon external validation, using external guidance wisely. When seeking guidance from mediums, tarot readers, or any external source, remember that you are the ultimate authority in your own life. Use these tools for perspective and insight, but always check what you hear against your own inner knowing. If something does not resonate, it is okay to let it go. If there is one lesson I have learned through all of these experiences, it is that we each possess an internal compass. More often than not, we already know what is best for our lives. The challenge is not a lack of knowledge. It is a lack of trust in ourselves. Tools such as mediumship, tarot, or spiritual counseling can complement our journey, but they should not direct it. Ultimately, the responsibility for our path rests with us. The wisdom we seek externally often mirrors the wisdom that has been quietly waiting within us all along. Understanding your thoughts. As I mentioned earlier, when I first began this journey, I carried a profound and persistent fear of death. The mere thought of mortality was enough to trigger an immediate wave of anxiety. These intrusive thoughts did not arrive gently. They appeared abruptly and with intensity, often spiraling into full panic. For a period of time, the distress became so overwhelming that I turned to medication as a way to stabilize myself and regain a sense of control. There is no shame in that chapter of my story. It was a necessary step at the time. However, as my understanding of both my mind and my spirituality deepened, I began developing healthier, more sustainable ways to respond when those thoughts surfaced. There's no shame in seeking help. Whether it is medication, therapy, or other forms of support, there's no shame in using the tools available to you. Healing is not a straight line, and sometimes we need external support to get through the darkest moments. What matters is that we keep moving forward. Over time, I discovered two approaches that proved especially effective. The first was learning to separate my identity from my thoughts. I came to understand that I am not the voice in my head, nor am I defined by the fears that arise within it. Thoughts are mental events, temporary, passing experiences that move through our awareness. They may be loud, intrusive, or emotionally charged, but they are not the essence of who we are. When I began to see myself as the observer, the awareness noticing the thought rather than the thought itself, I experienced a subtle but powerful shift. That distinction alone created breathing room between me and the fear. Practice. Observing your thoughts. Next time a distressing thought arises, try this. Instead of saying I am anxious or I am afraid, say I notice anxiety is present, or I am aware of fear arising. This small shift in language creates distance between you and the thought, reminding you that you are the observer, not the experience itself. The second approach has been equally transformative. When a distressing thought begins to build momentum, I gently remind myself, I do not have to resolve this right now. I can come back to it later. This is not an act of denial or suppression. Rather, it is a conscious decision to postpone engagement until I am in a more grounded emotional state. By giving myself permission to step back, I prevent the thought from escalating into something unmanageable. Creating that space allows me to regain balance before addressing the issue with clarity and reason. In addition, I have developed a firm but compassionate internal dialogue when I sense the onset of panic. When I feel the familiar physical signals, racing heart, tightening chest, shallow breath, I tell myself, we do not do this anymore. It may sound simple, but that statement serves as a boundary. It communicates to my body and mind that panic is no longer the default response. Does it work every single time? No. But the vast majority of the time, perhaps 90%, it is enough to interrupt the cycle before it fully takes hold, creating new patterns. Our brains are capable of forming new patterns at any age. By consistently interrupting the panic cycle and offering a different response, we literally rewire our neural pathways. It takes time and repetition, but change is absolutely possible. In the past, I would become anxious about the possibility of having a panic attack, which in turn would trigger the very episode I feared. The anticipation alone would send me spiraling. By confidently reminding myself that panic is not the path I choose, I often stop the escalation at its earliest stage. It is not about denying fear. It is about refusing to surrender to it. Through practice, patience, and self-awareness, I have learned that while I cannot always control which thoughts appear, I can influence how I respond to them. That realization has been one of the most empowering aspects of my journey, reframing your perspective. Sam Dima offers an interesting perspective on training the mind to think more positively. He suggests that when someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of immediately assuming the worst, imagine they are rushing to the hospital or even just trying to make it home in time to use the bathroom. The point is simple. Assume people have good intentions whenever possible. This small shift in perspective can instantly improve your mood and your day. Of course, this approach does not apply in every situation. I have found it works best with strangers rather than people you interact with regularly. Those you deal with on a day-to-day basis should usually be taken at face value. But when it comes to someone you barely know, especially if they react angrily or seem short-tempered, it is worth remembering that you have no idea what they may be dealing with behind the scenes. Their frustration may have nothing to do with you at all. Choosing empathy in those moments allows you to forgive, let go, and move forward without carrying unnecessary negativity with you. Questioning your thoughts. Let's take a closer look at the mind and the way thoughts move through it. For a long time, I would wake up in the morning with the immediate thought, I don't feel good. I don't want to get up. Something feels off. Over time, I began to notice that this thought was not entirely accurate. Most days, I did not feel unwell at all. I was simply tired. Once I recognized this pattern, I learned to pause and question the thought instead of automatically believing it. When my mind tells me I don't feel good, I now respond with a more grounded truth. You're just tired. Give yourself a moment to wake up. That small shift has made a significant difference. Practice fact-checking your thoughts. When you notice a recurring negative thought, ask yourself, is this objectively true? What evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? Is there a more accurate way to frame this situation? Often, our thoughts are habits rather than facts. I share this because it is often helpful to examine where a thought is really coming from. Is it an objective truth, or is it being shaped by fatigue, stress, or habit? By slowing down and questioning our internal dialogue, we give ourselves the opportunity to respond with clarity rather than reaction. Over time, this practice retrains the mind, proving that our thought patterns are not fixed. They can be reshaped with awareness and intention. Conclusion. The journey continues. Life is like a train journey. People come and go, each playing their part in our story. I have some reflections that I was not quite sure where to place within the structure of this book, so I am sharing them here. It took me a long time to reach this realization, but I have come to understand that holding on to anger and resentment accomplishes nothing for the person it is directed toward. It does not harm them. It does not keep them sad. It only harms the one who harbors it. I carried a great deal of anger and resentment after my divorce, and for years it weighed heavily on me. Eventually, I realized that the only way to truly heal was to let it go, to accept that both of us had done the best we could at the time. I also had to reflect on my own shortcomings and mistakes within that marriage, acknowledging them with honesty and compassion. True growth comes from recognizing that mistakes are part of being human and that resentment only prolongs suffering. This principle extends far beyond a romantic relationship. We all have friends, acquaintances, and colleagues with whom we have unresolved grievances. Often, those people have long since forgotten the incident or slight, while we continue to carry it with us. Forgiveness is not about excusing behavior. It is about freeing ourselves from the past. You cannot live in the past. If you remain there, you forfeit the future. That said, this realization can be difficult to fully grasp. In truth, the past no longer exists, and the future is not yet here. The only moment that truly matters is the present. The past cannot be changed, and the future is only a possibility. What we can act on, what we can experience, is the now, letting go of others' opinions. Another important lesson I have learned is to stop worrying excessively about what others think. Why allow the opinion of a coworker, a stranger at the grocery store, or someone we barely know to dictate our peace of mind? People move on quickly and rarely dwell on us as much as we believe. I have found it liberating to ask myself, why care about someone whose life I do not truly share? Of course, we naturally care about people we love or who matter deeply to us. But beyond that circle, it is unnecessary to expend energy on imagined judgments. Practice this so what test. When you find yourself worried about what someone thinks of you, ask, so what? What is the worst that could happen if they do not like me? Will it affect my life in any meaningful way? Most of the time, the answer is no. Their opinion has power only if you give it power, the train station theory. Even as I write these words, I recognize how challenging it is to remain fully present. But one of the most powerful lessons of my spiritual awakening has been the importance of staying in the moment. Stop trying to fix everything. Trust that it will all work out. When anxiety about tomorrow arises, remind yourself that you survived yesterday, you are surviving today, and you will continue to navigate tomorrow. A perspective that has helped me immensely is what I call the train station theory of life. Life is like a train ride. Some people enter at one stop and accompany you for the entire journey, while others join briefly and then move on. People come and go for reasons that are often beyond our understanding, and that is okay. Those who enter our lives, even temporarily, have a purpose, sometimes to teach, sometimes to challenge, sometimes simply to share moments of joy. Appreciating the time we have with each person, without clinging to them or resenting their departure, brings peace. Every connection has purpose. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. Some people come to teach you a lesson, some to help you through a difficult time, some to show you what you do not want. When someone leaves, wish them well and trust that their departure makes room for someone new. This lesson was particularly difficult to learn after my divorce. Even though that relationship ended and caused pain, there were still good moments that deserve recognition. Focusing on the positive memories rather than solely the hurt transforms our perspective and allows us to move forward with gratitude rather than bitterness. A final word. As you reach the end of this reflection on my awakening and spiritual journey, I hope you have found something meaningful within these pages. Even if nothing here resonates directly, I hope it inspires you to think differently, to consider new ideas, or to approach life from a fresh perspective. I firmly believe that no one ever fully completes their spiritual journey. Growth is continuous, often unexpected, and endlessly unfolding. There's always more to learn about life, about ourselves, and about ourselves. I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to read this book and for allowing me to share my journey with you. Your openness and presence in these pages mean more to me than words can fully express, and it is my hope that something within these reflections will support or inspire you on your own path. Your journey is your own. Take what serves you from this book and leave the rest. Trust your own inner guidance. You are exactly where you need to be on your journey, even if it does not always feel that way. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep awakening. With gratitude and hope, Hunter M.